So we can start in 15 seconds.
Okay, let me guess. Okay. So
And
if so, do I have time for question and answers? Q&A?
I think yes, you will have like 5 minutes
Okay.
after the speech. So
Where can I see the Q&A?
from my side, I will like share with you the questions,
Okay.
and maybe I can resend it to you to this private chat which we have. So
This will work. Yeah, this will work. Perfect.
just need to double check that we are live and we are here.
So do I have time for
So
question and answers?
it's nice to be with you here, guys. And the next speaker will be Joseph Wu from Potato Play, and he will talk about how to speak to the publisher. So let's give him a word, and let's stick to his panel.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Roman. Nice to meet you guys. So I'm just going to start my topic now. So today I'm going to talk about how to actually speak to a publisher. But before I go into the topic proper, I figured it makes sense to do a quick self introduction, right? So I am Joseph. As Roman mentioned, I with Potato Play right now. We are a free-to-play mobile games developer and publisher. So we do both ends of things. So I spent 3+ years here. Previously, I was in China working for a Chinese mobile games publisher as well. So I've always been in the mobile, game scouts, partnership, that kind of a role. So today, I figured that it's a great opportunity for me to share when is it a good, how do you speak to a publisher, when it's a good time, what to look out for, stuff like that. Because it's something that I realize, many people don't really know. They just go to a publisher, just without much expectations, just say look for a publisher, and then my job is done. That's not really the case. So I wanted to debunk it over here. That's it, right? I want to also bring it up that because my background is mainly in mobile, this whole conversation would be mainly on mobile games, focus on free-to-play mobile. That said, I do believe that many of these information are transferable to PC as well. It should be very relatable, except certain things such as metrics, etc., which I'll point out later. But overall, how PC and mobile games publisher think and work, they're quite similar. The things, the pitfalls you need to look out for are quite similar. So yeah, so I think the very first question you need to be asking yourself, if you're looking at a publisher, is do you even need a publisher, right? In this day and age, you need to know why you're looking for a publisher. You need to understand what you hope to get out from it. So I take a quick, stab at it. I think it could be summarized into 4 different key ideas that why people come to look for us, right? So the first one could be expertise and guidance, where you want to look for a publisher because you want to leverage on their skill set, on their knowledge. So for example, as a publisher ourselves, right, we do have a focus when it comes to merge games and idle games, idle RPGs. So what's happening is we are in talks with a couple of developers, and they are very interested in working with us. Really, one of the key reasons is because of our expertise in it. We have, we are at a very unique position where we develop games as well as publish games. So people are interested in, that 2+2 = 3, right? So that's what they're looking for. Another example, not just us, for example, in the past, I would like to say hyper casual is dead, but when hyper casual was thriving, people will want to work out with hyper casual publishers, and one reason is also because they have a lot of insight into market trends, right? They are at the forefront, they are buying it, firsthand, they know what's going to be popular, what's not, they share these insights with their developers. So this is one potential reason why you might want to look for a publisher to help scale your game. Another reason why you want a publisher is because the ability to reach a bigger market. It is literally our full-time job, my full-time job, to look for different channels, to find different ways to scale the game. It's very much a team working on it. So if you're a developer and you want to focus on just building the game, this is something you this is the kind of help that you're looking for as well. I think I think one thing to point out is that it's not that easy to actually do marketing on your own. I mean, if you could hire, third parties, that's a different conversation. But if you want to do it in-house, you need to make sure that you're willing to invest the time and resources into it. It's doable for sure. It's just, do you have the time and the resources available? Third thing, that people reach out to publishers is really about the finances, funding, MGs, to sustain the team. Maybe you're not cash strapped, but you also want to for a publisher because you want to, speed up the risk a little bit because, when you develop a game, there's already risk involved. When you start scaling the game, there's also another form of risk involved. So instead of taking all the risk on yourself, of course, you want to look for people, publishers, to mitigate the risk. So finally, one other thing that people look for publishers is because depending on the game you have, some game it's not just about putting it out there and it's done. There are things like community, there's support, live ops, more content, etc., etc. These might be things that you're not well suited out to do. Maybe the way you design it is very, very different, and you're looking for help on that aspect. That's what a publisher does as well. So with that in mind, I think the whole point of me doing here is I want to list out a couple of reasons why people reach out to publishers, and you need to ask yourself, are these things something you're looking for? If you believe you could do it all in-house, then by all means go ahead and publish yourselves, right? But if there's any of these things that you believe you want some help with, I would suggest at least speaking to a couple of publishers there. Yeah. So the next thing, right? With that in mind, you have actually decided, hey, you need a publisher. You have a need there. There's certain things you want to achieve. The second question becomes, what are some? So you want to speak to the publisher, right? So you need to first understand, what they are looking for. So what are some things publishers actually do, when they look at a game? So again, for this, I can only speak for myself. And people around me, my friends, I do believe it's quite similar. So end of the day, regardless what you're doing, it's all about profit, right? They might have some different goals, right? Some publishers, they might be more interested in revenue, some more interested in profit. But the end goal is somewhat similar. Just make sure that both you and your publisher are the same goals aligned, right? So of course, everyone wants money. It's not that easy. So we could break it down into three different factors, that could help us what we use to actually understand if there is a potential there for publishers to actually to work with you and to actually make money from it, right? So the first one, I think the most clear-cut one would be the product of the product itself, the game itself. So instead of telling you, what's required, I think it makes more sense for me to share with you how would I break down a game, or how would we ask, in the publishing department, break down a game when we actually review the game, right? Again, this is mainly for mobile because mobile works quite differently. So in the mobile world, there are three key factors that determine a make or break, right? Metrics is king. Average revenue per DAU, retention, and cost per install, CPI. Why? Because these three factors, if you do your math, multiply it actually translates to profit. And with this in mind, I want to actually mention that it is very crucial for mobile games to have such benchmarks as early as possible, especially for smaller teams, because you actually lower the risk. Instead of spending one whole year developing a game only to find out that the metrics is not good enough, you could spend like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months sprints, test a short-term early metrics to understand how where you are and then what you need to do to move forward. And then after a couple of runs, a couple of sprints, then you will understand if it's something that you still want to work on, or do you think it's not worth the effort anymore, and then you could change to a new product. So at least this gives you to be in a seat of power instead of being proactively, reactively trying to save the game after a year or two of investment. This is something we do ourselves as well. But I digress. So with that in mind, again, these three metrics, you could probably only get it when the game is quite late, right? Of course, you try to optimize it to test early, but it's not always the case. So what do we do as a publisher when you give us a game and it has no metrics, right? Which is the more realistic outcome. So we'll break down the game, we'll review the game, and then there are 4 key questions that we ask ourselves. These are the 4 key questions that we believe will impact the CPI, the up, down, and retention of the game. So the first one being the theme/art style of the game. This basically means the first impression of the game. So when we get out the game, when we turn on the game that we want to test, This is the first impression, right? Like, what's the art style is like? Is it pixel? Is it anime style? Is it what so many art style, right? So what art style is it? Based on our experience as a publisher, what's the CPI going to be like? For example, hyper casual art style, generally speaking, would have a lower CPI. If you do something really, really hardcore, generally speaking, higher CPI, etc., because of the audience, right? Then the second thing we'll look at is there a unique angle you can market the game? So I'll give you an example. For example, recently there's a game called Legend of Slimes, right? So they managed to play on a team of slimes where it used to be a weak, small creature. Now suddenly it's you grow it, you scale it, and then it becomes a big boss that could defeat everyone else. So it's a very interesting play that people are interested. So the point being, is there any unique concepts or unique things that that's fresh to the player that they want to play based on the team and art alone, right? And finally, it depends on if it's suitable. So because of developers trying to be different, sometimes they'll match two different things of like, oh, this is unique, so it's amazing, right? But being unique might not be a good thing, it might be a bad thing. So that is also something we will look at. Of course, there is room for flexibility here, which is why we always emphasize on early testing. But generally speaking, you need to look at the audience. We look at the audience, and if we understand this is a right target with the art style in the team, is it suitable for the target audience you're going for? The kind of gameplay, is it suitable, etc., etc. Again, there are exceptions. Like a match 3. There's RPG versions targeting at male audiences, etc., etc. But that's the idea, right? So the second thing we'll look at is the gameplay of the game itself. So when we talk about gameplay, what we're really talking about is it fun? End of the day, it's a game. It needs to be fun for us as well. A quick pointer here, when I say fun for us, it does not necessarily mean that it's the kind of game we like. There are many games that we tested and we published that I'm personally not a big fan of, but I need to be able to see who it appeals to and why it appeals to that audience. I think being in this line of work, and for all of us, it's many times it's not just about do we like it or not. It's about how can we understand the audience, and do we think the audience actually like it. So that's what we're trying to do here. And then secondly, wow factor, I briefly touched on it earlier. It's about something unique, different angle. Maybe instead of the artwork and theme, it could be a gameplay that players would love. For example, when Auto Chess first came out, although it's not the best example because it's not financially successful, but when Auto Chess first came out, it was a very unique gameplay. Or maybe Merge 2 or Merge 3, right? When the first few Merge 2 games came about, everyone started following suit because it was a unique gameplay and players actually like it. So that's something we're looking at. And of course, FTUE and onboarding of the game. I'm looking at this mainly because I always emphasize testing early, and that's something we will help developers do as well. But for that to be somewhat in order for test metrics, test numbers to make sense, the FTUB/onboarding of the game needs to be done. This is something that we always emphasize to gamers, because if you're not able to keep your gamers in day one, there's day one retention. There's really no point designing day 30, day 60 late game content that you might enjoy more, because there's not enough players to play it. End of the day, it's a business. I hate to say it, I'm a gamer myself, but the truth is, as a publisher ourselves, we need to think from a business perspective. We are the business partners, in the relationship. So that's what we are coming from, right? And finally, sense of satisfaction. This really depends on the game. So, for example, again, it's a merge game. It's a merging. It's smooth. Does it feel good? Like how match 3 games. Candy Crush. If it's so successful because when you match it, it's just so satisfying. If it's a hack and slash, it needs to be satisfying, etc., etc. So the gameplay is everything we're looking at. Is it well designed? Is it something that has potential? The third thing that we're going to look at is monetization potential. So I mentioned earlier that we are the business brains behind the partnership. You guys, that is how I usually explain to our partners. This is where we will look into how you intend to monetize the game. So generally speaking, I'm talking about free-to-play games, so it's usually ads and IP. So how much ads and IP do you intend to have in the game? Are there motivation for players to convert? Why would players convert to become paying users? Have you thought about it? How's the balancing of the game? Is it too difficult such that no one wants to play the game, or is it too easy such that no one will spend? How is the retention going to be like? So these are all, I'm just trying to be very general about it, but this actually makes or breaks the game. And I think one thing to note here is also, usually speaking, the kind of game, the kind of meta you choose within your game would impact this as well. So my personal suggestion is when you're designing it, also please look at competitors and look at top charts, just to understand what people are doing, and then you could adopt similar ones, or even better, you could design something that you think is even better, include something unique, right? So that's something you could look into. Finally, which again I overlap a little bit, how does the game compare to competitors? This is where we look at the overall market, how competitive this particular game is. For example, match 3 is something I would never recommend to the small studio unless they are really experienced with it, because the competition is just intense, right? I would suggest, especially smaller teams, or like they don't have too much resources, to look at a genre that is profitable but not too competitive, so that there is space for you to grow. And then also, how different second thing, how different are you from competitors? What's something new to the table? Because if you do a clone, let's be honest, there's no point, there's no reason for a gamer to actually come and play your game. So we will highly recommend you to find ways where you're differentiating yourself. It does not have to be a huge differentiating factor. It could be a different experience because of a different team. It could be just a smoother experience. So that matters as well. All right, so I've talked quite a bit on the product of the game itself, and I decided to go a little bit more into it, because I figured when you speak to a publisher, that's probably the most important thing they look at. But I do not want to I want you to also understand the fact that there are other factors impacting how a publisher will make a decision. So team, your team, your development team is also something that we care a lot about, because as a good friend of mine used to always say, a publishing contract is like a marriage, right? You spend the first couple of weeks before you sign the contract, it's the dating phase, you try your best with each other, but then when it's done, both parties, that's where you got to make or break it. So it's really important for us. So at least for us at Potato Play, what we were looking for is really a long-term relationship where it be a happy marriage. So we want to know, not just what you're bringing to the table, but also understanding who are the people behind it. That's the concept behind it. So with that in mind, I think it's great to show what are some of your expertise and track record. If you're if you're an amazing team, A1 team, then probably you do not need this conversation, because you really get funding right now. But let's be realistic, most of us have some experience, but we are not superstars yet. So what you can do is to show your expertise. What you have done before, what projects you have done before. What is your role? Where for example, someone has done lots of game design before, designed a couple of games before in the previous occupation. That would be great, right? Second thing, it's not just about what you know right now; it's about how you're growing as well. That's something we look into as well, because it's like a long-term partnership, right? You don't have to be fantastic. We're not looking for someone who is fantastic, but we're looking for someone who will improve significantly over time. Finally, I think two very important things is what are the publisher goals and what are your goals. These two goals need to align, because if it's not aligned, there might cause issues down the road. For example, if your goal is just to find a publisher and then move on a new project, which I've seen before, it's fine. It needs to be clear. Let the publisher know about it, and vice versa, right? If you want the game and then you want to work a lot on the game, you need to be clear with the publisher as well, so that at least when the contract is signed, there will not be any misunderstandings on that end. Yeah, so the third factor that I want to talk about, that I think it's quite important for you to pay attention to as well, is really what direction is the publishing. So third factor that us as publishers would consider would be our direction, right? Where are we heading to? So I really want to add this, because I want to let everyone know, sometimes a publisher, when they say no to your game, it's not because they don't believe in the product. It's not because the game is not good. It's not because the team is not good. Sometimes it's really just because the publisher's direction is not suitable. So why do I say that, right? So for example, we cannot do the game justice, right? Maybe like a hardcore game, you require a lot of resources when it comes to community, when it comes to engagement, when it comes to events for players, etc., etc., etc. Maybe at that point in time, as us as a publisher, we do not have the necessary resources to support your game to the fullest. We believe that if we sign a game, you will not do it justice. That's something that we will not do it, and we'll say no to you. So that's one. Other one is maybe the target audience is not right. Maybe you're trying to target Japanese, Koreans, the Asians, but then your game is designed. But then us as publisher, we are more capable when it comes to the Western audiences, English speaking audiences. Then we will say no as well. So the point being, don't take no's to your heart. More of understand the fact that it's just many different factors that might just lead us to say no. All right, so to the most important part, the whole thing about how to talk to a publisher, I've went on and on and on about how we view games, etc., because I felt that this information is really important for you to prepare when you actually talk to a publisher. Because with the idea in mind on how publishers actually think and do, I think it would help. So what does it mean for you, right? So the first thing, when you speak to a publisher is, oh, wait, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Give me 1 minute. So the first question is, when do you actually speak to us as publishers, right? I think, as I mentioned earlier, you need to be really, really clear on why you're looking for a publisher and be transparent about it, right? It could be funding, expertise, whatever, right? Why? Because, for example, there's a couple of deals in my hand. There's one specific deal in my hand. Initially, we are not interested in working together because of the requirements. They say that I want MG, this support, that support, blah, blah, blah. We figured that it's not the right deal. But then after, further conversation, we realized that why the reason they are looking for a publisher is because they want to achieve a certain goal. And that is something we could work around in order to find a unique way to work together. That is a win-win. So always be upfront about what you're looking for. We can try to find a way to work together and to see if it's a potential deal. If not, it's fine, right? But at the very least, there's no miscommunications and it makes sense. Second thing that I would suggest, is that before you speak to them, do your research. Understand what they're doing. So for example, again, at Potato Play, we do a lot of merch and casual, idle RPGs, that kind of games. So if you have a similar game, come to us, then we are of course able to evaluate a lot more. Are there other games? So for example, some people come to me with a hyper casual game, they'll be like, I'm sorry, that is not a company's mandate, we don't do it. So just to save your time as well, so to understand what they're looking for, understand what they've been doing, so that the conversation will make more sense. And finally, I highly recommend you to reach out to a publishers in fact, as soon as possible. Really, because we do keep track of your progress, right? I mentioned earlier, some things we look at, the teams being how they're growing. I mentioned, we want to take a look at it. We have expertise to share. So these are all reasons why I believe you should reach out as soon as possible. Maintain a mailing list if you want, right? Like every quarterly or something, if you have a couple of updates, major updates, just send to all of them. Hey, check it out. I think that will do wonders for you. It's a low maintenance thing, but at the same time, you could get many people feedback and many people eyes on your game. Yeah. So, long story short, reach out to us as soon as possible. Secondly, when you reach out to us, what should you prepare? I think this is more specifically for mobile games, to be honest. So I think for mobile games, I mentioned earlier, data as much as possible. CPI, retention, ARPU. If you have this, it helps. We're not going to take it at face value. At least for us, we will still test it. Maybe some people take it at face value. We will still test it because how you set up a campaign would impact as well. But it will it would do wonders to push a particular project internally. Again, this is not required. We will do a test, but it just helps, right? So second thing that's at least for mobile, I think a vertical slice is very, very important, because many people can do a very good presentation, paint a very beautiful story about the game, but then when you actually play it might be different from the vision. So having ability to play a vertical slice, like a very, very nice one initially, would help significantly. Also, being very well versed in the particular game would help a lot as well, because it shows us that you have done research into the game. Again, in the team being a team that's worth working with, it shows that you know what you're talking about, and you're not working with like a developer that is all over the place. And more importantly, we are able to identify if you have the right values as us, the right vision as us. So, for example, let's say we have a hypothesis saying that, okay, this is 100%, hypothetical, but let's say we have a hypothesis that says, casual games, are dead. It needs fully IEP. If you have the same vision as us, then we believe the same thing. Let's work together. So that's what we're looking for, right? So if you are well versed in a genre, if you are clearer about what you did, what you want to do, and what has succeeded and failed, it really inspires confidence in publishers. And finally, a critical analysis of your game. I understand it's not perfect. It's a vertical slice. It's still a lot more work in progress. But if you could, have the same, if the way you analyze your game is very clear, and we agree with it, that actually helps internally as well when it comes to evaluating the game. So other things to look out for, right? I'm reaching the end of my presentation. Other things to look out for is first thing, keep an eye for the contract. Again, it's a marriage. You might love, the BD or the person you're working with, but the truth is, that person might not stay there forever. I've heard horror stories where, the partnership was amazing, it's great, everything went how it's supposed to be, but then the person responsible left, and a new person came up, he checked out the contract, and then he or she will be like, hey, as per the contract, you need to do A, B, C, and then that's not part of it. So that's something, it's a necessary evil, do check out the contract, read it, find help if you need, make sure that there's nothing that is, a red flag. I'm pretty sure more often than not, sometimes it's not intentional as well. But it's best to check it. Yeah, secondly is, also understand, looking for a publisher is not necessarily just one publisher. Sometimes you look for original publishers as well. But the truth is there is additional work behind it. So, best to do your own internal evaluation if it's worthwhile to, do a new localization, a new SDK, new integration, everything for a different publisher, right? And finally, game references might be something that's very, very important as well. Really because, again, it's one of those things that could show, your thinking process, what you have learned from this particular game, what you really liked about it, what you don't like about it, what have you done to improve it. All these kind of things are very, very important for us because it shows value in the team and not just the product itself. Of course, product, again, mobile metric is king. Product is the most important, but end of the day, most of us are not there yet, right? So the team is just as important. All right, so I've reached the end of my presentation. If you guys have any other questions, please put it in there. I'm pretty sure Roman would transfer it in. If not, feel free to scan this my LinkedIn code. Looking forward to connect with you guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Joseph, for your presentation. I think, yeah, it's more about the marriage when you're reaching out to publishers because, but it's most like to be the parents. So the game developer and the publishers goes like the parents, and the kid is like the game and the approach. So from publisher side, it's like approach to the game, and from the developer side, it's like the game itself. And you just need to marry these two guys, two girls, to whoever, whatever, and then just to see how they growing up, because as the kids, as the parents, you are also need to care about them. So it's the best, I think, cooperation which can be. Yeah, there is questions thinking from fantastic presentation. Is it made in pixel art? And I know pixel art is not easy one. And yes, so thank you for being preparing amazing presentation and for being part in HIT conference. So there may be some questions for you in LinkedIn, but right now in the chat I do not see them. So I think you in your presentation mentioned every aspect which can be, and that's why it was full and understandable